Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, entitled The Son of Drona Punished, text number 16. Tada shuchaste pramrajami bhadre yad brahma bandho shira atatainaha gandiva muktair vishikairupahare Tvakramya yatsnasya sidagda putra. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O gentle lady, when I present you with the head of that Brahmana, after beheading him with arrows from my Gandiva bow, I shall then wipe the tears from your eyes and pacify you. Then, after burning your son's bodies, you can take your bath standing on his head. Purport. An enemy who sets fire to the house, administers poison, attacks all of a sudden with deadly weapons, plunders wealth, or usurps agricultural fields, or entices one's wife is called an aggressor. Such an aggressor, though he be a Brahmana or a so-called son of a Brahmana, has to be punished in all circumstances. When Arjuna promised to behead the aggressor named Ashwathama, he knew well that Ashwathama was the son of a Brahmana. But because the so-called Brahmana acted like a butcher, he was taken as such, and there was no question of sin in killing such a Brahmana's son who proved to be a villain. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So we are reading from a chapter called The Son of Drona Punished. The son of Drona here is referring to Ashwathama. So this verse, we are seeing that Arjuna is speaking these words, purportedly to be very harsh. When we hear the translation, it looks very violent. So Arjuna is speaking these words to Draupadi. In the previous verse we saw how Draupadi was lamenting about the death of her 5 children who were beheaded, massacred by Ashwathama, and that too when they were fast asleep. So when Draupadi was very much in grief and lamenting, to console her, to pacify her, Arjuna started to speak. And he spoke these words. He is telling, I shall wipe your tears only after I behead him, Ashwathama's head, from his body, and then you can burn your son's bodies and then take bath standing on his head. So without the proper knowledge of the whole scenario of this context, if we just look at this verse, it looks as if Arjuna is a very violent person, and we can't understand what is the Arjuna's mood in presenting such harsh words. In fact, when we go out for preaching, we most commonly encounter this frequently asked question that Bhagavad Gita is promoting violence. When Arjuna doesn't want to kill, he is exhibiting his saintly character by not fighting for the kingdom, and he is willing to go away to the forest. And Krishna is telling, no, you should fight and kill the Kauravas. So there are some unscrupulous commentators who interpret this activity of Krishna as promoting violence. They say, no, Krishna is not supporting the saintly character of Arjuna. Rather, he is asking him to kill, which is much against the moral and ethical principles. So for that, Srila Prabhupada in the purport to this verse explains that there are 6 kinds of aggressors. There are 6 kinds of aggressors, and if we kill those aggressors, there is no such sin. Who are the aggressors? One who sets fire to others' house. That is number 1. And second type, one who administers poison. And the third one, who usurps others' land. And the fourth, who attacks with deadly weapons. And fifth, who plunders others' wealth. And last, one who entices others' wife. So the Shastras, Vedic scriptures are giving us the information that a person who is performing any of these 6 kinds of activities can be classified under a group called aggressors. And these aggressors are committing such a heinous act by any of these 6 activities that even if they are prone to death, even if they are given capital punishment, a death sentence, then there is no sin. In fact, Shastras tell it is for benefiting that living entity who has done such a very heinous act. Even in the olden days, I think many of the kings used to follow this principle that if a person is caught doing any of the serious crimes, so then he will be given the death sentence. That is because Shastras say that whatever activities we do in this life, we have to suffer the reactions of that. We'll have to go to hellish planets. Bhagavatam describes that there are 26 varieties of types of hellish planets. So which kind of sin, what kind of punishment you get. So to decrease the intensity of that punishment for the sins, we'll have to, by giving a capital punishment, death sentence, we are undergoing some part of that reaction in this very life. And that was the purpose behind giving a death sentence. So in the same context here, so there when Arjuna was being encouraged by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita to kill, and that was because Kauravas were aggressors not in just one instance, in many instances. Like Kunti Maharani prays, Vishan Mahagne Purushada Darshanad. She is recalling in her prayers to Lord Krishna that how Kauravas had tried all means to eradicate the Pandavas. They had set fire, they had administered poison, they tried to disrobe and insult Draupadi in the huge assembly. So whatever we discussed, that 6 kinds of aggressors, Kauravas had done more than one. And therefore, based on this Vedic principle, Krishna was advising Arjuna to go ahead and kill the Kauravas because they were aggressors. So coming back to this case, Arjuna is again telling that I am going to behead Ashwatthama and then present you with the head of that person, because Ashwatthama here was an aggressor because he beheaded the sons of Draupadi while they were asleep. And it is, forget about aggressor, he is not even followed a proper Kshatriya dharma. Because a Kshatriya, in his moral principles of fighting, he is supposed to provide the weapon to the opposite party challenging him and then take on him. That is the principle of a Kshatriya dharma. So, but even that was defied. And second thing here, Prabhupada explains that Ashwatthama was a Brahma Bandhu. Like Arjuna addresses Ashwatthama that I will present you the head of the son of a Brahmana, Brahma Bandhoho. So the Vedas describe what is the meaning of Brahma Bandhoho. Brahmana means Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. One who knows who is Brahman, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is called a Brahmana. But the son or a relative of a Brahmana who does not possess that quality of a Brahmana, means the son or relative of a Brahmana who does not know the principles of Brahmanism, then he is called Brahma Bandhu. In other words, Brahma Bandhu means he who is unfit for being called a Brahmana. So here Arjuna is calling Ashwatthama a Brahma Bandhu, because although he was the son of a greatest Brahmana, that is Dronacharya, who was the master of Arjuna, spiritual master of Arjuna. So, but still, as the son of a Brahmana, he didn't follow the principles of Brahmanism. And in this context only, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Chatur Varnyam Maya Srushtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. Generally, whatever today there is big hue and cry about casteism, division of society, intolerance. So they are all having a particular concept based on the Janma. So we think when a Brahmana is born, when a baby is born in the Brahmana's family, he automatically gets entitled to that title of Brahmana. But Krishna is telling in Bhagavad Gita, the classification in the society is based on not on janma, but guna on karma. The quality that he possesses and the work he does. So somebody may be being born in a Kshatriya family, but he doesn't automatically become a Kshatriya. Srila Prabhupada gives a very nice example that just because a person has been born in a family of a high court judge, he automatically doesn't become a high court judge. He has to qualify himself. He has to get that degree, he has to undergo that internship, he has to do that practice, he has to be acquainted with that knowledge of the law. Only then he will be called a judge. Similarly, when a person is born into a family or a particular caste, he automatically doesn't belong to that caste. So rather, it is by the qualities that he develops in the due course of development and the work he does, then he is classified under a particular category. So similarly, in this case, Ashwatthama is a Brahma Bandhu and not a Brahmana, although he was born in the family of a Brahmana with a great legacy, like that of Dronacharya. He had such a great personality as his father, but still he doesn't deserve to be called a Brahmana because he was an aggressor. And second mistake that Ashwatthama did was, although in the Vedic history, although there may be a necessity to vanquish a particular evil element or a demon, a Brahmana himself does not take up this task. For example, in the Ramayana, if you see, Vishwamitra, when he was constantly being disturbed by the attacks of Tataki, a demon, so he approached King Dashrath and requested the help of Ram and Lakshman. He himself did not take up the task, although he is powerful enough. Generally, Brahmanas, who is a real Brahmana, I am talking about, they are equipped with such a power, then by just a curse, they can kill a person. That again, we have a story and an example of King Parikshit. The Shringi was a 12-year-old boy, a small young boy, but when he cursed, then King Parikshit had to suffer the reaction of that. He has to face imminent death within 7 days. So Brahmana by nature, he may be powerful, but he will not use that for his personal purpose. So similarly here, Ashwatthama, being a son of a Brahmana, he was supposed to fight on the moral principles. And even if there is some enticement for fighting, he should not take it up by himself, because he is born in a Brahmana family and is supposed to be a Brahmana. So but here he took up that task by himself. So on evaluating all these parameters on the basis of the activity of Ashwatthama, Arjuna was very much right in his decision to kill or to behead Ashwatthama. So therefore, the understanding that Arjuna may be very violent in this case by telling these harsh words, it proves to be wrong. In fact, there is one instance where Srila Prabhupada writes a letter on June 22, 1973 to Kirtanananda Maharaj. Kirtanananda Maharaj at that time was deputed in the northern part of the country, and he was taking charge of the different parts of northern part of the country. At that time, there was some incident where some dacoits had come to the temple and they had fired. They had created some kind of violence and fear. They had instilled some fear in the minds of the devotees. They basically wanted to loot some wealth from the temple. So at that time, when Prabhupada comes to know about this incident, he is writing a letter to Kirtanananda Maharaj. He says, after the shooting affair, what precaution have you taken? So he is questioning Kirtanananda Maharaj. After the shooting incident happened, what precaution have you taken? Bharadraja is here. He is referring to a devotee, and he gave report that the devotees were very frightened about that incident. I further understand that the attack was for the second time. So Prabhupada is now being appraised that this was for the second time that dacoits are attacking the temple and shooting and firing. So and then he says that we have now taken 2 guns at Mayapur. He is basically referring to some instances that has happened in Mayapur. So he says, in Mayapur also there were reports of dacoity, and now we have taken 2 guns under regular license from the government. So now when your temple was attacked twice, why are you not keeping guns? So when your temple is attacked thrice, why are we advocating non-violence? There is nothing called non-violence, and when there is aggression, we must kill them. So I think you should immediately arrange for guns, and at least 10 to 12 men should be trained up so that when there is attack again, you can properly reply to the aggressor. So Prabhupada is, in his personal thing, Leela, you can see that Prabhupada how he is telling the devotees that you should take sufficient care for at least defending ourselves. See, basically here the point is not to be violent. The point is to be defensive. If there is an aggressor who is trying to loot our wealth, the property of the temple, the property of Radha Krishna, so then it is our duty, moral responsibility to safeguard that. So we cannot call this act as violence. So when somebody, especially when we are facing an aggressor. And in this case, as we discussed, Ashwatthama had butchered the heads, and therefore it is very much right. There is one more nice story of Narada Muni, how he brings out this concept of aggressor and killing. Once Narada Muni, because Narada Muni himself is a pure devotee, but because he wanted to get some knowledge for the sake of all of our understanding, he did this pastime. He goes to Hanuman. Narada Muni goes to Hanuman, and he confronts him by saying, "You are not a devotee." So when Hanuman heard this, he was little taken aback. He is also a great devotee. So Narada Muni is now coming and telling him, "You are not a devotee." So then Hanuman very politely inquires from Narada Muni that, how did you come to this conclusion? How could you conclude that I am not a devotee? So then Narada Muni explains that based on the knowledge of the Shastras, that a person who sets fire to others' house is called aggressor. That's what we discussed right now. So, and you went and burnt all the houses in Lanka, and therefore you are an aggressor. And the Shastras tell, as we were discussing till now, that an aggressor, even if he is killed, it is not a sin, because by doing that activity, he has accumulated so much of sin that even if he is killed, the aggressor is killed, it is not a sin on the part of who is killing the aggressor. So he is telling, so therefore you have been very clearly categorized under an aggressor, and which means you have done so much of sin, and therefore you don't deserve to be called as a devotee. And see, when two pure devotees are talking, so another person can also understand the purport of this devotee confronting him with this. Of course, Narada Muni, as I told, he was just he was jovial in his comment. He knew, he had a broader plan in making this comment. So anyway, Hanuman, again being a pure devotee, he understood the meaning, and he explained again on the basis of Shastra. He gives another Vedic principle to counteract and to reply this question of Narada Muni. He says, when I went to Lanka, I saw so many houses, all inhabited by Rakshasas. And there is a Vedic principle, there is a principle mentioned in the Shastras, that even before that he says, as a devotee of Lord Rama, or as devotees, it is a moral responsibility to dispose of any dead bodies in a proper way. He is quoting a Vedic principle Like even in our traditional households, we see that when a person dies, he is being done some Antya Samskara for 12 days, and then we do once in a month some Pinda Pradhana. All this is basically to pray to the Lord, and we offer that Vishnu Prasadam so that he be relieved from the hellish situation and be given a better life in his next birth. So that is why we do all these rites. So Hanuman is referring to a Vedic principle where he is saying it is the duty of a devotee that if at all there are unclaimed dead bodies, if at all somebody has been found dead and there is nobody to perform the rites, it is the duty of a devotee to ensure and perform the last rites for that unclaimed dead body so that that soul gets the good life in the next birth. So this is one Vedic principle. So Hanuman is referring to that. So then Narada Muni says, okay, that is fine. This I understood and I also accept this. If at all there are unclaimed dead bodies, you should perform the last rites and do it. But then how does this support your principle, support your activity of going and burning the Lanka? So then he says, he quotes another Vedic principle, and then Hanuman continues saying, a person who is not chanting the names and glories of the Lord is considered to be dead. So you got the link. So he is telling, first he told that unclaimed dead body should be burnt, and that's the one of the moral responsibilities of a devotee. And then he is telling, when I went to Lanka, there were no houses, I could not hear any holy names of the Lord chanted and glorified. So I considered everybody as dead body there, and therefore another principle says I should burn the dead body so that they get good life, so I burnt everything. So and then he also says that except one house, and that house belonged to Vibhishana. So where the Lord's holy names were being chanted, so except that one house, I burnt everything. So the moral principle that Hanuman is trying to bring out in this conversation with Narada Muni is that when a person does not chant the glories of the Lord, chant the names of the Lord, he is considered to be dead. And in fact the same principle is very nicely enunciated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 38th chapter, verse number 12, where it says, Yasya khilameva habi sumangalaihi Vacho vimishra gunakarma janmabhihi prananti shumbhanti punanti vai jagat yastad vikrataha shavashobana mataha. In this verse, Bhagavatam is describing 5 transcendental qualities of chanting the names of the Lord. The glories of the Lord, when a person chants the holy name, there are 5 qualities or 5 symptoms or 5 byproducts that happen, that one can witness. What is that? Yasya akhila amiva. Akhila means, it's a kind of a expression which says entirety, it says entire universe. Akhila jagat they say, entire universe. So here it is told, Yasya akhila amiva. Akhila amiva means sin. So akhila amiva means all the sins, habihi. All the sins are destroyed. So this is the first effect that the holy name can produce. Yasya akhila amiva abhihi. Then second effect is sumangalaihi. Sumangala, mangala means auspiciousness. So sumangalaihi means very auspicious. So the second effect that the holy name, that the process of chanting and glorifying the Lord can produce is it brings about all kinds of auspiciousness that is there in the universe. And what is the third effect? Vacho vimishra gunakarma janmabhihi. Guna karma jarma means one who is chanting the quality, activity and the birth of the Lord. So first is yasya akila amiva, that is all the sins are eradicated. In fact, different scriptures say that by chanting the holy names of the Lord, one can vanquish the amount of sin which an expert sinner cannot do, or which one cannot imagine performing a sin. You can imagine some kind of a sinful activity right now in our mind based on our conditioning. But Shastra is telling a generic statement that holy name, chanting of the holy names of the Lord can eradicate such an amount of sin that you can never imagine of doing it. So that's the power of the holy name. So first thing is it will eradicate the sin which we cannot imagine. Second is Sumangalaihi. Third is Prananti. Prananti, basically it says that one's existence gets purified. And Shumbhanti. Shumbhanti means, Prananti is animates. So this is the connection between what Hanuman said, that a person who does not chant the glories of the Lord, he is considered a dead body. So on the other hand, Bhagavatam is describing the same principle, that one who chants the activities, name and birth of the Supreme Lord, his life will get prananti, it will get animated, means life will be poured into such a person. And fourth quality is Shumbhanti. The Bhagavatam is telling a person who chants the glories of the Lord, his face will be beautified. In fact, Prabhupada, in one of his pastimes with his devotees, he says that those who are not performing devotional service, their faces look like rotten banana. And those faces who perform devotional service, it looks like a bubbly watermelon. So he makes this comparison. It's a very interesting thing that Prabhupada says. He says, he makes a comparison to rotten banana to those faces who do not perform devotional service. And those who do devotional service, he says, their faces glow like a bubbly watermelon. So that is what Bhagavatam is telling. Shumbhanti, that their faces gets beautified. And Punanti, their lives get purified. So these are the 5 effects that Bhagavatam is describing. One is Akhila Amiva Habihi, all sins getting eradicated. Sumangalaihi, that is, it brings about all auspiciousness to us. Third is Prananti. Prananti is, life is, you get enlivened. Yeah, life is poured. And fourth is Shumbhanti, gets beautified. And fifth is Punanti, which means it gets purified. These are the 5 qualities that will come up in a person who is constantly chanting and glorifying the activities of the Lord. And it is our duty and responsibility to offer our humble homage to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, for having given us this opportunity. We all have understood to some extent the importance of chanting the holy names of the Lord. We all do not, maybe most of us here do not have this knowledge of what happens by chanting. So there are even more and more, there are hundreds of volumes of books written on the glories of the holy name. So we do not have any of that knowledge. But still, because of the grace of Srila Prabhupada, we have taken up this knowledge. So it is our responsibility to thank him. And today happens to be one of the most auspicious days of the Thiro Bhava Leela of Srila Prabhupada. That is the disappearance day. And the day on which Srila Prabhupada wound up his pastimes in this material world. Generally, in the outside world, they do not have this concept of celebrating the occasion of somebody departing the world. They rather mourn for the departed soul. But the Vaishnava principle says that when a Vaishnava quits his body, definitely on the account of devotional service that he has performed throughout his life, he is going back to Godhead. And that is one of the greatest success of human life, because you are overcoming Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. So the entanglement that is continuing since millions of lives is being broken. And you are successfully entering the kingdom of God, where there are none of these miseries experienced by the soul or by the living entity. So definitely it's an occasion to celebrate. So and a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, he is not a sadhana siddha. There are 2 types of perfection. So one is sadhana siddha and one is nitya siddha. The second is nitya siddha. So when a devotee constantly performs devotional service, gets purified and then goes back to Godhead, that is called sadhana siddha. So where on the virtue of doing sadhana, following the regulative principles, chanting the holy names, following the other do's and don'ts, we are going back to Godhead. But Prabhupada belongs to totally a different category. He belongs to a category called Nitya Siddha. He is eternally liberated. He has come down on the order of Krishna for the sake of liberating the fallen conditioned souls like us. So today happens to be that day. So I just wanted to recollect one or two pastimes of Srila Prabhupada where we can experience and understand his causeless mercy to fallen souls like us. There was one pastime that happened in Geneva, Switzerland. So there, Switzerland at that time in 1960s happened to be a land with full of writers, philosophers, and there were many scholars like that. And one among them was a person by name Sergius Golovin. Sergius Golovin was one of the very famous writer, and he had become famous on account of his innovative approach that he took towards the philosophy. Usually there was one conventional approach, so he took a different approach and he always explained philosophy in a different angle. On account of that, he had become very popular, especially in Switzerland. And he was also one of the researcher of esoteric spirituality. So generally spirituality, as many people of modern world believe, that it is a set of do's and don'ts, some rules and regulation, you should do this, you should not do that. So this person, Sergius Golovin, was trying to attack that sometimes it could be some superstitious beliefs. So he was trying to prove what is correct and what is not. So he was in the field of researching and proving to the world that this is not true, this is just a belief which is held by people since ages. So he was trying to do that, and he had become very, very popular. So when Prabhupada had come there to Geneva, one of the devotees, because it was a customary during the days of Srila Prabhupada that whoever celebrities are there, they would get them to meet Srila Prabhupada so that they get this knowledge, and when they become devotees, the other people following them will automatically become devotees. The principle which is enunciated by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So similarly, one of the devotees was very fired up and he made several attempts to get this person. So in fact, he could not meet him for quite number of attempts. Then finally, he will succeed one day. And he will become very happy when that philosopher Sergius Golovin will agree to come and meet Srila Prabhupada. So he considered it that all the hard work that he had done was a very big success. So accordingly, the day arrives when Sergius Golovin was supposed to meet Srila Prabhupada. So Sergius Golovin will enter the room, and he will, as soon as he enters, Srila Prabhupada will tell him to sit on an asana that was designated for him. And then after he sits, now this devotee was very curious to know how Srila Prabhupada, because they didn't have much experience of how Prabhupada dealt and all. Very few days Prabhupada used to live in each place. So this devotee was so anxious that his spiritual master is there, and he was successful. He was somewhere sailing in the air because he was successful in getting such a big celebrity to Srila Prabhupada. So now that person has come and he has been seated on the seat, cushion. Now there is absolute silence. Neither Srila Prabhupada is speaking, nor that philosopher Sergius Golovin is speaking. And this devotee's curiosity grows. He doesn't know what to do. So then finally, after some time, Srila Prabhupada asks, he breaks the silence by asking, "Do you have any questions?" For which Sergius Golovin replies, "No, Swamiji. I just am happy being in your presence." And then silence continues for some more time. So this devotee, now all his happiness had by then come down. He will be thinking, now what will I do? Srila Prabhupada will definitely scold me. Why did I get this person? He is not even interacting with Prabhupada. So he was feeling very much bad about his decision to get him. So then immediately Prabhupada calls one devotee and asks him to get one harmonium. So then, when a devotee gets the harmonium, Prabhupada starts playing on it. He closes his eyes and continuously plays on the harmonium with intense devotion for 30 minutes. He never stopped in between. So this was something very, very, very unusual. Never devotees had experienced this. Otherwise we only have seen that angle of Srila Prabhupada talking, debating, presenting the philosophy from the scientific point of view. So and then, unrevealing the secrets that is present in. So we have only seen one kind of angle, one angle of Srila Prabhupada. So, but in this case, it was very unusual that Srila Prabhupada started playing an harmonium, and that too for 30 minutes. And in the end, after 30 minutes, he stops playing, and this Sergius Golovin will make a comment in the end. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for inviting me here. It was my honor being with you. With these few acknowledgements, he gets up and starts going, and at that time Prabhupada will indicate to that devotee who was there with him, that give him some prasadam. And then he leaves. So what does this pastime of Prabhupada drive home? What is the point? Prabhupada was such a pure devotee. He knows how to manage each and every one of us. Some of us are here because we wanted to know what is the truth. Some of us here because we wanted to understand philosophy. And many of us are here, if I am not wrong, because nice prasadam is there, which only Prabhupada, otherwise our traditional understanding of prasadam is only puliogre and curd rice. So each one of us have come here for different things. And Prabhupada knows how to engage each one of us. Many times in the ashram we see that how each one of the devotees are excelling in their particular services. So sometimes it really dawns upon us that Prabhupada has chosen them. He has handpicked them. He has handpicked all of us. Imagine, if you are one of the legislator, or even for that matter Prime Minister of a country, if I am telling you that you are going to become that, so how much elated will you be? But the Prime Minister is just for a country. And Shastras say, we have become devotees of Lord Krishna. And if you get the overall global picture of this whole universe, how many devotees are there? We are handpicked by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada knows how to attract each one of us, which he did in this pastime. He never went on to argue with that guy. Maybe if he had done that, that philosopher would have been put off. He would have never been in a mood to humble enough to accept Srila Prabhupada's scientific argument. So Prabhupada took a totally different, a totally unconventional approach and left a long-lasting impression upon him. So that is the purity of Srila Prabhupada. Not only that, he also reciprocates with each one of us. Generally we say that, deities reciprocate. But Srila Prabhupada also can reciprocate to each one of us. There is yet another pastime which is very heart-touching. When I heard that, it was really, I became a little bit overburdened by emotions. There was once during the last few days of Srila Prabhupada's Bhauma Leela, as most of you will be knowing, he did not take any food. So for the last 6 months he was just subsisting on Charanamrit and little fruit juices very infrequently. So one of the devotees who was very far in a different place, I don't remember that place, he was a pujari. And he had few more devotees who were also in the same service. They were all pujaris. And as you know, pujari service is one of the most important services, and they cannot give up that service because the worship of the Lord cannot be stopped at any circumstances. So these devotees who were pujaris at one temple very far off from Vrindavan, where Prabhupada was lying on his bed in a very fragile condition. So they come to know about the deteriorating health of Srila Prabhupada. So he develops very intense desire that he wants to go and have darshan of Srila Prabhupada. So he was continuously praying to the Lord to facilitate this, and one fine day there will be a book distribution team coming to their temple. And the moment they saw these devotees, the first question he asked was, "Can you please do this worshipping of the Lord for few days? We would like to go and see Srila Prabhupada and come back." So he makes that proposal just right like that. So, and those devotees also miraculously agree for that proposal. Okay, if you are desiring so much, please go ahead and come back. But then that book distribution team was scheduled to stay there only for 5 days. So they told these devotees, 2 or 3 devotees I guess, so who were pujaris in the temple, so please go and come back in 5 days, because we need to move from here. Our schedule to stay here was only for 5 days. So these devotees were very much elated, very much happy, excited about going and having darshan of Srila Prabhupada. So they come with all hopes to Vrindavan. But by then Prabhupada's condition was so much had so much deteriorated that devotees were not allowed to meet him, except a few senior sannyasis and GBCs. Only they were in the room. Otherwise, every disciple coming, talking and touching his lotus feet. So it would prove to be a disturbance for Prabhupada. He could not take sufficient rest. So that's why they had restricted. So when this group of devotees arrived, so as usual, so those GBCs and senior sannyasi did not allow them. So they made so much request, so much they begged literally, they fell at the feet, but the senior devotee and GBC did not allow these devotees to see Srila Prabhupada. And it was about 1.5 days travel that they had already made. And they have to go back 1.5 days, because 5 days was the total time given to them by the book distribution camp. So they were hardly left with 2 days for staying at Vrindavan. So first day they did everything, and second day also they tried all ways and means to jump and see through the the door little bit. They just wanted to. They were very clear in their request. They told, "We will not disturb Srila Prabhupada. You make us see from a far distance, and that is enough. I don't want to disturb him. Please, we have come from a far off place." Everything they will describe. But the devotees who were in the room of Prabhupada were also right in another angle, that they didn't want to, allow this, because once if you allow, then there were so many devotees, lined up to have darshan and all that. So they held on to their stance that they would not allow these devotees. But these devotees' desire was very intense and very genuine. It so happened that these devotees were totally disheartened by turning down their request, were just moving out of the room, and there was one large window, huge window of Srila Prabhupada's room, which was covered by curtains. So there also they were trying to see whether in curtain some hole we can have darshan of Prabhupada. Immediately, at the very time that they were trying to have darshan, the curtains sound, they will hear, the curtains are opened, windows are opened, and Srila Prabhupada signs at them like this. And the secretary of Srila Prabhupada comes out and tells these devotees that this window was not opened for the last 6 months. And Srila Prabhupada was not at all speaking also. He had completely reduced his talks. But at this instance, the moment when they were about to leave, Prabhupada tells his secretary, clear instruction, open that window. So, the pastime what this clearly tells us is, Prabhupada, just like Paramatma in our heart, can reciprocate with our desires. Srila Prabhupada, being the spiritual master, being a pure devotee of the Lord, also knows all our plus and minus. He knows how to take us on the path back to Godhead. All that it is required from our side is to put endeavors, is to make a sincere effort in trying to follow the principles given by Srila Prabhupada. And as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada also gives the very same promise that whatever you lack, he is going to fill up that. So genuinely all of us are in different stages of the spiritual ladder. All of us are in unique conditions which only we know. So we cannot judge others by the external conditions. But only thing that we need to practice for ourselves, keep with this principle in the mind, that when we sincerely try to practice and endeavor to follow the principles of Srila Prabhupada, then he is going to definitely help us in overcoming all the hurdles and succeed on the path of devotional service. Like to stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki. A small announcement. Today there is Harinam festival at 10 a.m. in open air theatre. We request all of you to attend the festival and join in chanting the glories of name of the holy name of the Lord. Thank you. Hare Krishna.